Well, welcome back to the Peak Performance Podcast. As always, I'm Shane Kelly. I'm joined today with Coach Frank Colabufo, head coach of the boys ice hockey team at West Genesee High, three-time state champ, 14-time section champion, New York State School Association Hall of Fame, and recently NFHS National Coach of the Year. How you doing today?
Good, Shane. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I'm just I love talking to coaches and kind of getting a feel for their programs, what they've done in order to find success. Because talk about all the time, winning is cool, but you got to win the right way, especially at the high school level. So, what made you want to get into coaching, and why did you land on this high school level?
Well, I come from a family of educators, right? So I'm the oldest of four kids. My mom and dad were both teachers. My dad went on to be a guidance counselor and then eventually a high school principal um, and then eventually a district level administrator. All four of me and my three siblings all went into education. We all became teachers. One of my youngest brother's now a superintendent of schools. So education was kind of in our blood. My aunts and uncles, everyone was into teaching, and ironically, I was the oldest, and my dad was like, "Well, you can do whatever you want, but we're willing to help you pay for school, so you can do whatever you want." But and I wanted to go into communications and broadcasting at the time, and he was like, "But we just want to make sure you get like an undergrad in teaching, something to fall back on." Well, I was like, all right, that's not a bad thing. So I got an English communications degree. I got an undergrad in education, and I did my student teaching. And before I ever graduated, I got offered a teaching job. And I met my wife in college, and so I took the job, and she took a teaching job too, and that was that. And at the same time, not only do I come from a family of educators, but we're like a family of athletes, and sports were really big in our family growing up. And so when I had the opportunity to teach and coach, and it's obviously it's hard to find hockey coaches, that can be at the rink right after school. And so when I got my opportunity, I jumped right at it. So I've been doing it ever since. So it wasn't something that I planned on, but it kind of was a natural fit,
That I mean, sometimes that's just the way things work out.
right?
You ended up in the right spot.
Yeah.
So how would you describe your coaching style, and how do you think your athletes would describe it the same way? Are you more of an intense coach, more of a laid back, athlete-centered coach? What do you
Well,
think?
you know what? It's 32 years as the head coach at West Genesee. I was 3 years an assistant before that at West Genesee, and 3 years before that, I was an assistant coach at one of our neighboring high schools. So I'd like to think that I've kind of evolved and adapted over 3 decades. But I say at the end of the day, and I look back and I think what's always been consistent. I think um, when you talk about a coaching style, I think more than anything, I've tried to be relationship based, relationship focused. I coached varsity baseball for 7 or 8 years too, while I was also coaching hockey. And I don't think it's about the
Wow.
sport. I think it's the people. Like you're coaching people first, and then it's the sport after that. So I think that's all I've always tried to focus on building relationships, building trust, and from there, I think you can accomplish a lot. But if they don't trust you and you don't have a relationship with them and they're your players, I don't think you're going to last very long, no matter what the sport is.
It's not even related to sport. If people don't trust you, they're not going to listen to anything you have to say.
Right.
Um, a coach I actually was talking to 2 days ago, we got into leadership and that went down that train. And I brought up a book I read for graduate school, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. And he talks all about trust.
Yeah.
he said it's the number one thing. And for coaches, it same concepts. If you don't trust your athletes and your athletes don't trust you, it really doesn't matter what you know because
Exactly.
it's not going to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? To the do I think that they would share that that is my opinion? I think they would. I think they, if you ask them very honestly, they would tell you that we have very high expectations for them. We hold them to high standards, and we hold them accountable um, for everything, whether it's on the ice or in the classroom or in the community. But that's because we care about them, right? And you're talking about. I mean, if you're coaching a successful program, you're dealing with competitive people and high achieving people and kids with high aspirations. And I think that's how they want to be coached, right? Like if they're competitive, they want to be rewarded for doing the right thing and respect the fact that you're trying to help them get to a level that they want to get to. So, and I think that's the trust piece. I think you can be, and I think we are very demanding, but you can be demanding without being demeaning.
I love that. I'm actually going to write that down. Be demanding without being demeaning. So, would you say the culture around your team is a very competitive atmosphere? It's intense, it's competitive, but at the same time, everybody has each other's backs.
Yeah, I think the two words that we talk about the most are habits and details, because I think that cuts across everything, right? So that's habits and details in on the ice, in the classroom, in the community, in every facet of your life. It's habits and details. You got to get the little things right, and you got to do it consistently so that they become a habit. And that, I think, like, everyone has a culture. We talk about that, right? And we can talk about that later on, but we talk about when people talk about culture, like that could mean a million different things to a million different people. In our program, when we talk about culture and we talk about it, it's about habits and details in everything that you do. You have to do everything to the very best of your ability. You got to pay attention to the little things, and you have to do it consistently. And I think that's it. All evolves from there.
Love that. Is that something you've kind of always brought with you? Because you brought up 30 years of coaching experience. Is that something that kind of built itself over time, or were you hard on that early on in your career as well?
So um, it kind of it's kind of all part of the story. So I grew up right here in Camillus. I went to West Genesee High School and I played there. So I basically never left. So I know this town and I know this community intimately. I was raised here. When I played here, no coach lasted more than 1 or 2 years ever. And then the coach before me he lasted for 8 years. And then I've been here, and now the program started in 1970-71 season. So that gives you the idea. So that coach lasted, the previous coach was here for 8 years. He brought me in as his assistant for 3 years, and then I was given the opportunity to become the head coach. So looking at and I will say that there have been some talented teams prior to prior to me taking over as the head coach. And I don't want I don't want this to be like this was me that made the difference in this program, because that wasn't it. But what I noticed was there were a lot of resources available that you could tap into that could really propel this program forward in the community. It's a passionate community. They love their sports. It's always been a big lacrosse town, lacrosse school. You can, like Mike Nasser, he's a legend in the lacrosse world. And I was like, these are the same athletes. Like, all these lacrosse players also play hockey. Now, why is it that we can't sustain the same success in the hockey program? And I think it was just because the program they weren't teachers coaching in the program, and the youth program really wasn't a part of the hockey program like the lacrosse program had been. So I was like, well, maybe there's a way. And I had this vision that maybe if we focused on the little things, and this is where the habits and the details come into play, maybe we could piece this all together and see where it goes. Because I thought this thing could really take off if we did it the right way. And so once I was given the opportunity to become the head coach, I went to our town Parks and Rec department and we started to run coach because our rink is owned by the town. The school doesn't own the rink. So we tried to like build this relationship between the recreation program and the school district, which we did. And it's solid. And that's why all our varsity sports do well. But especially with an ice rink. So that was step one. Step two was really really getting involved in the youth program. So from the time these kids first lace up a pair of skates, they should know who I am and they should know who our players are. And that's what we did. So we started having our players help out with the youth practices. Those kids could put a face with a name, then they start coming to our games. Then now they're lining up outside our locker room, they're fist pumping the players on the way to and from the rink. And it became something where the community really took pride in the team, but at the same time, this is the details part. We were reading in elementary schools. We were unloading Christmas trees for the Camillus Optimists on the day before Thanksgiving. We were doing all that volunteerism, and it became much more than hockey. And then we started, and then we were taking that same approach on the ice. And so I took over in 94, 95 season. And in 01, we won the state championship. And then it started to really take hold. And so that habits and details, that's what I mean. It was kind of pervasive. And it wasn't me, it was a community that really kind of embraced it. And then it just snowballed.
That is something you don't often hear about with high school sports. That's awesome, though. I love that.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's those little kids that aspire to dress in that. We had an addition put onto the locker room. It's a $300,000 addition, 33 oak stalls. It's as nice as any NCAA room, and even some pro rooms.
It reminds me a lot of concepts we discuss in my field related to what's called the small town effect with sports and athletes, where you see a disproportionate number of elite athletes coming from these small communities. And you can instill that in any city size. That really doesn't matter, but it's all about community.
Right.
And in these small towns, it the teams are working directly with the community and the community backs their teams and it kind of snowballs into a great effect. And that's a sounds like exactly what happened with your hockey team. You have the kids looking up to the athletes, wanting to be like them, and you have the athletes giving back to the community, and it just is a beautiful dynamic between the two.
It is. It really is. And you have kids that have the opportunity to leave early and maybe go to prep school. And we encourage them to do that. My own son, we have five kids, and the three boys played for me. But our youngest, who's now coaching in college himself, he played eighth grade, ninth grade, 10th grade, and it was time he had to leave. It was time he needed to do something different for his own ambitions and aspirations, and he was ready to do it. But they're torn. It's like I have to, you know what I mean? And so in as much as that, now we want to surround him with good people in a similar environment to provide that same experience, right? And so that was hard for my wife and I to really sort that out. Like he ended up going to Northwood Prep School in Lake Placid for 2 years, and that was the best experience that we could have provided for him. And then it was the whole, now you're going to go play junior hockey. And he had, we had coaches from the BCHL, British Columbia, all over. and they're trying to, well, if he comes here, he's going to play with NHL draft picks, and this is why he should play here. And then we had Bonneville Pontiacs up in Alberta, and they called and said, well, if he comes here, he's going to work youth clinics and he's going to read in the elementary school. And we were like, well, that's where we're going to send our kid until COVID hit and he couldn't cross the border. So, but you know what I'm saying? It's like that's the experience we're trying to provide for them, and that's what we want them to have moving forward. And then that's the experience we want them to give back when it's their time to do so.
Well, and I imagine having these experiences as a team, giving back to the community, reading to the elementary school kids. I would imagine it kind of takes away from their own personal ego where it's like, oh, I'm great, I'm great. And it becomes more of a we community where it's like we do this together and we are great rather than I'm great.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like you and to your point about culture, like we've obviously we've won a lot. We don't ever talk about winning, right? Winning's an outcome. If you do enough things right, usually that's going to happen. So and it's out of your control. Like you can't control how good the other team is. You can't control the referees. You can't control sickness or injuries, right? Like, but you have to control what you can control to the extent that you can. So we talk about winning with culture because that's the stuff that we do have control over. And in as much as that, then no one's bigger than the program. Not me, not any of the players. Like you can't do this alone, right? Like, so you need everyone in that room, and you're gonna have to give up a little bit of you for the betterment of all of us. And 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 that's the stuff that we talk about. We don't talk about winning.
Uh, And honestly, it's winning is an outcome. But
Right.
like you said, if you do the little things, you do the process right, you're going to win. So it's like, don't be focused on the win, be focused on the process to get you to the win.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And that speaks to how you approach practice. It speaks to how you approach all of it. You know what I mean? But when you're talking about the game, we have 7 game standards. They're the same that we've always had, and we focus on getting those right. You know what I mean? Some are offensive standards, defensive standards, goaltending, whatever, but they're team standards. It's not like this kid's going to get 3 goals and that kid's going to make this many saves. It's not that. And so we try to break it down and focus on we have game standards, but those standards will inform our practices, right? So what standards are we getting? How are we getting them? What do we need to keep doing? And what do we need to change so that we can get these other standards that maybe we're not getting?
It's almost like a scientific approach to sport,
It
it
is
sounds
really
like.
because if we get 4 out of the 7, we win.
And then say you get 4 out of the 7, you win. You have a week off, no games. You could spend that week working on the other 3 and kind of take your foot off the gas with the 4 you did properly. Is that right?
Uh, yes, but also I'm a firm believer in if you're doing those things right, that might be why you're winning. So you better keep doing them,
Yeah. I'm not
right?
saying neglect those
Yeah,
moving
no, right,
forward.
right.
Interesting. Well, I'm always interested in like repeat success because I recently read Phil Jackson's book, and nobody's won more at the top level than him. And he talks about the only thing that's harder than winning a championship is winning a second championship because everybody's motivation
Yeah.
naturally kind of dies off a little bit. So, how do you keep your athletes motivated when they're finding that sustained success?
It's not so much about keeping them motivated. Because again, we focus on the process. So we don't keep talking. We don't really talk about the winning. And to that point, you don't get to start where you finish. Right. So, our state championship every year is in Harbor Center in Buffalo where the Sabres play. And it's like well, and we lost the state championship last year, right? We had won it the year before. We've been whatever. The point is, we don't get to start in Buffalo when training camp starts. We start right back at Shove Park, where nobody's in the stands and everyone's battling to make the team and win a roster spot and win a spot in the lineup and embrace certain roles. So you have to start over. But at the same time, as soon as you pull that West Genesee jersey on, everybody's got that game circled on their schedule. So you're going to get everybody's best game all year. And that's a challenge because, and to be honest, this year we lost 3 of our first 5 games of the season, and we were getting everybody's best game. And it's a thing where you don't have the same, like, and this is what I tell them: the standard never changes, but the roster does, right? So now, I mean, it's high school, right? You're not going to have kids. They graduate, some move on, and some you have to replace. But we start the year with kids playing in roles that they didn't finish last year in. Now they're playing in bigger roles, eating up more minutes, power play that maybe they've never been on the power play, or penalty kill, so on and so forth. So they've got to adjust, they've got to adapt, we've got to grow, but the standard doesn't change, right? And then the other piece, when we won the state championship in 2023, I let the kids wanted to get rings, and the state championship teams before them had gotten rings, and I have nothing to do with that, but I let them design the ring and so on and so forth. So they decided that the inscription inside of the ring that they wanted was going to be "Make it to Monday." And the significance behind that, I thought it was kind of cool, because the significance behind that is not the state championship, but our sectional championship is always played on a Monday night downtown in the home of the Syracuse Crunch, the American League affiliate for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And it's always played on a Monday. And interestingly, their goal is not to win the sectional championship. And if you don't win that, you can't move on. Like you don't even play in the state tournament. Their goal is only to get there. And it's always played on that Monday night. And the inscription in the championship ring was "Make it to Monday." And for years on the whiteboard in our room, at the beginning of every season, one of the kids will go up and he'll just write "Make it to Monday." And it's significant because it's not really about winning. But when we get to this part of the season where, you lose and your season's over and there's a finality to it all, they don't talk about winning. They talk about getting another week together. So if we win, we get to come back here and we get another week. And if we win that game, we get another week. So it really becomes a thing. It's really, that's the powerful part for me, because you're talking about teenage boys that just want to be together. You know what I mean? And I'm going to say it's the love part of it, but it truly is. It's their wanting to be with one another, and they're going to do whatever it takes at this point to stay together and win another and earn another game, is what they'll say.
I mean, I think love's the perfect word for it.
Yeah.
It's at the center of everything to do with sports.
Right.
Those boys love to play, so they want to keep playing. And how do you do that? You win the next game. Well, what advice would you give to an inexperienced high school coach, or even yourself from 30 years ago, that would help them improve their own coaching ability and help their teams find the success that you've had?
Here's what I would say. Like, we're very fortunate that um we've had the opportunity to coach some pretty talented kids and move them on to prep school, junior, NCAA, some pro, right? And in some of those kids have now gone on to coach. But that's an anomaly. So if you're coaching a high school sport, no matter what the sport, the vast majority of your athletes are not going past high school. This is going to be the pinnacle of their athletic career. And I would say, and I believe this in my heart, it is my job to give them the best experience I can possibly give them with every resource at my disposal. So from 3 to 5 every day after school, that has to be the best 2 hours of their day. And we treat them like professionals. We know they're kids, but we treat them, we give them the best of everything. We give them the best opportunities to succeed. We give them the most support that we can. We try to fill the stands for them. We 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 promote them on social media. Like, we make a game at our rink a big deal, because for these kids, it's going to be the biggest deal they ever experience. And shame on me if I'm not doing that for those kids. And I think that what I would tell any high school coach, be it their first year or someone as old as me, like, that's what we need to be doing for these kids. Like this is it. This is the best it's going to get for them. So let's make it memorable. Give them something that they can take with them, and then give it back, because there's going to be other kids that they're going to be instrumental in their lives, and they're going to remember that, right? And they're only going to know what they know. So it's our job to make it their Stanley Cup, their Super Bowl, their World Series, whatever it is.
And I just finished up my first year coaching, and that is actually something I tried to do, but I felt like I could have done more. I was coaching a freshman soccer team out here, and every day I tried to make it the best possible. And I talked to a lot of my players. They had a great season. A lot of them said it was the most fun they'd ever had, but I still felt like had I had a bit more resources or a bit more time with them, I could have done so much more. And I'm really looking forward to seeing kind of what I end up doing next year and the year after. Because I
Yeah,
really
well,
just want, I love my high school. When I played in high school, I had some of my best memories as an athlete.
yep,
And I want to give that back, just like you said.
right. And that's what it's about, right? You want these kids to be surrounded by good people that care about them, and make it enjoyable. And I think if you do that, then they're gonna give you everything they have, right? Like, I mean, like, hey, these people are invested in me. The players are invested, and that's where then the accountability piece comes in, right? Like, hey, you gotta, you gotta hold up your end of the bargain here, right? Because this is, and that would bring, we have a we have a when you're trying to sustain something like that, especially at a varsity level, that accountability piece, we have a sign outside our locker room. So if you can imagine, our locker room is down the end of a runway that leads to the arena. And when they step out of our locker room, they go into this hallway. Above it is a line from the poem. It's a World War I poem, in Flanders Fields, and it's, to you from failing hands we throw the torch, be yours to hold it high. And every time they walk under that sign, they all tap it with their glove. And it's basically a tribute to the kids that came before them, and gave them this program that now they're entrusted with, and they have to then throw the torch to the next generation of kids, who then they have to uphold the traditions and the culture, and everything that comes with putting on that jersey. So it's pretty powerful, and it's way bigger than me. And it's just something that over time has evolved. I can't hardly put it into words, but the kids feel it. And then when you do, if you are fortunate enough to win the whole thing, which we have a handful of times, that bus ride back, when you get back into the town and every street is blocked by the first responders and the police, and then you turn up the rink road and they're four, five, six people deep all the way up the street, and they're just cheering for these kids. And I get emotional thinking about it. Like, and you're on the bus. That I again, like that's just something you just feel like you can't really describe that, but that's something that these kids that get that will they'll take with them forever.
Yeah, I don't think you could forget that if you tried. That
Yeah.
feels like something straight out of a movie.
Yeah, right. Yeah, really. Like I'm fortunate to have been able to experience that here. And um again, though, that's it's a, something like this is just it's not one person. It's literally a community and people supporting. And not that it's not a ton of work, and you have to do the work. And culture is something you have to work on every day, or it'll disappear, and it'll disappear quick. But you have to be vigilant. But it's totally worth it.
Well, it sounds, I know you keep saying it's not all on you, but it sounds like you've done a great job creating that we before me mentality and extending it onto the community because that really is beautiful for
Well,
a
I appreciate
community and
that.
a group of boys to get behind.
Yeah, it's special.
Well, thank you again for your time. That's everything I have. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
I appreciate it.
Good luck with everything. Hopefully, starts to warm up a little bit in New York in the
Right,
coming weeks.
right. Well, thank you for having me, Shane, and good luck with your soccer team.
All right, thank you. Have a great
All
rest of the
right.
day.